What if everything you believed about retirement was wrong? Too many people retire and they just stop. They stop growing, they stop learning, they stop living. When you retire, you should be experiencing the best chapter of your life because so many people work and wait to start living when they retire. And then when they retire, everything just stops. Let's flip the script on what it looks like to retire. This is Lead with Confidence Now. I'm your host, Travia Steward, reinvention and personal development expert with over 27 years of helping people to find their level of confidence so they can make better decisions, and also helping people decide who it is that they want to be and then live into that. Let's jump right into our topic today. What's up, my peeps? Happy Podcast Thursday. As always, I mentioned this in a few episodes before that I want to answer a question or maybe even just respond to, a conversation or expound on a conversation that I've had recently. And I was actually, one of the things I love about driving for Lyft is having conversations with people that I've never met. And one of the conversations the other day, I picked up a lady and it was it was one of the best honest like conversations I had that entire day. And so the reason why I want to talk about this today is because she motivated me to talk about this topic because I believe leading with confidence is not just about the workplace, it's not just about relationships, it's leading with confidence in every aspect of your life. And the reason why retirement came up is because she is retired. And we talked about what it looked like and, basically how to spend her time during the day, in addition to like going to appointments, taking grandkids here, doing this, allowing everyone else to set the schedule. So the reason why this resonated so much for me was because my mom, when she was alive, my mom was an insurance agent. And when she was an insurance agent, she would count money like nobody's business. Like she would, like it didn't matter like what the number was. Like she could count money, she could give change, she could like do addition and subtraction, sometimes even multiplication in her head. And I just remember being so impressed by that. And when I was teaching high school theater, there were kids in my class, who were like juniors and seniors in high school who were like, "Hey, Miss Stewart, can you teach me how to count change?" And I'm like, "What?" Because I think things are so different now. But that was one of the things I loved about my mom. My mom could do that like nobody's business. And so when I feel like she was working as an insurance agent, she enjoyed that. And then when it was time to close that chapter, she's like, I want to have more impact. I want to give back. Now, she didn't use these words. She didn't know. These are personal development words, and these are words that are in my vocabulary. She just probably got bored and like, I'm ready to do something else. I'm tired of, collecting money from people, for their insurance and people who don't want to pay. So she decided that she wanted to be a home care nurse. And my mom went back to school and got her certificate so that she could do this. She reinvented herself after she had been working in the insurance industry for years and years and years. And when my mother retired, I think she was about 67, 68 or so when she retired. And when my mother retired, she didn't do anything. Like, she stayed home most of the time. Basically, she talked on the phone a lot. She did read her Bible probably every day. And she talked on the phone every day and gossiped. To be perfectly honest, that's what she did. I would call and talk to her about, hey, what are you doing? And it was always like, I'm watching Judge Judy. I'm watching, this TV show, Jerry Springer, whatever the thing was. But it was never in the form of, what am I doing that excites me, that keeps me growing? And again, my mom retired when she was in her late 60s. And then she passed when she was 85. And I remember about a year or so before my mom passed, I wanted to spend some time with her, and not just go down there and fix things in the house and, fix the TV, fix the ceiling fan, fix this, the drawer's broken. I wanted to actually spend some quality time with her. So I was like, on my way down, I was like, I should get a puzzle. I'm going to do a puzzle with my mom. Well, we didn't have time to do, like a 500 piece puzzle. So the options were very limited on this day. So it was either like a big fancy puzzle or it was like a 25-piece puzzle. Well, I thought that was fun too because I did not remember my mom doing puzzles. And again, I want to remind you that this was a woman who could, do numbers. She was sharp. She was on her game. Well, when she was about, she was like 82, 83 or so. All those years of not growing and using her brain in a challenging way, that day when I went down to do the puzzle with my mom could not put together this jumbo puzzle. It was 25 pieces because she could not tell the difference between the edge pieces and the middle pieces. And I share that story with you because that was a wake-up call. One of the wake-up calls, one of the many wake-up calls that I had, but that was one of the wake-up calls of, my goodness, she stopped using her brain, she stopped growing, she stopped living. And opposed to that, the opposite of that was my sister. My sister, who I call Sitter, pretty much almost all my life. And I was talking to my nephew just a couple of days ago, and we were reminiscing about Sitter, my sister and his mother. And Sitter, on the other hand, she, retired and stopped working, but she was still writing books. She was still researching history. She was still taking classes at like UNO and Delgado in New Orleans. She was still dreaming and working towards those things. And the conversation I had with my nephew just a couple of days ago, his words were, I want to be like my mom because she died dreaming. She was still dreaming. And that just meant so much to me that she died dreaming. And I believe that she died still living, still having energy, still having purpose. And so what I want you to think about today is, how do you flip the script? I want you to think about redefining retirement. And I'm not talking about like when you're like, there's some people, I have some friends who have retired, they're not even 50 yet. But what does that look like? If you have a shit ton of money and you can go travel and do all the things, then that's great too. But you still come home. Or even if you don't come home and you sell your goods, there's still moments where it's like, it's not all, exciting and seeing this and seeing that. You still have moments when you're by yourself. You still have moments when you're like, okay, there's nothing exciting happening in my life today. What am I going to do that's going to light my fire? What am I going to do that's going to keep me, invigorated and energized? And that's where I want you to think about, how can I redefine it? How can I reinvent myself? Because so many people, the average person spends decades in retirement. And I believe that when you've taken care of yourself, when you're healthy and you can still do these things, this is an opportunity to redefine and envision what retirement, what this next chapter in your life could actually look like, because for most of us, we've been working for, so many of us, we've been working for the man. And then the man said, what time you need to show up for work? The man said, here's your lunch break. The man said, this is what time you get off. And the man said, this is how much you get paid. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to start my own business, was because I wanted to do things on my own terms. I wanted to redefine and reinvent what my life looked like after teaching. So I want you to think about redefining, reinventing what that time looks like for you when you are no longer clocking in, when you're like, okay, I'm closing the chapter of working a 9 to 5, well, what does it look like? Moving past the idea that retirement means, I just sit down, I put a remote in my hand and I watch TV, and I might go on a trip, and I might, 2 times a year, whatever that is. So first we want to make that decision. The second thing is, I want you to envision what it is that you want this next chapter to look like. Think of it as you get to have a blank notebook, a blank canvas that you can write anything that you wanted. Now, again, with reason. You're probably not going to go be an Olympic athlete. You're probably not going to, take up snowboarding. But what does it look like according to where you are in your life? And we can think 10 times. We can think so far out of the box. And so I want you to think about creating a clear vision for your life. And so when you do that, like, dream big. I was listening to another podcast the other day, and it was Benjamin Hardy talking about, he wrote a book called 10X is Better Than 2X. And in that book, he talks about, like, if we're going for something that's just a little better, that's like 2X. And the example he gives is, it's kind of like when you're crawling, 2X would be crawling faster. And then, back in the day before automobiles, there was horse and buggy. And if you would have asked people what they wanted back then, they would have said faster horses. But thinking outside the box, cars were developed, trains were developed, not faster horses. So how can you 10X your thinking? How can you think out of the box and basically think about what were some of those things that, you long to do when you wanted, wish you had more time? Some of those things where you're like, I put this off and I really wanted to be able to do this. Like what are the things that have always excited you? Like maybe as a kid, maybe as a young adult, but you never had time to do it. Now you have that time. Now you have time. The friend the lady that I was talking to, she's like, I got time to play the guitar. I got time I'm learning a new language. And so it's important to keep learning and keep growing, because I believe if you're not growing, you're dying. Now, the scientist Shelley would say I'm wrong, because you can not grow and not die, but I don't ascribe to that thinking. I believe you're either growing or you're dying. And so if you're not learning, if you're not evolving, I believe you're not growing. And so when you're envisioning and when you're thinking about this next chapter, that you're like, I want this to be my best, because who wants it to be their worst, right? We want to always go, how can tomorrow be better than today? This is about finding the purpose. Finding a purpose in this chapter of life, in that vision, whether it's a hobby, whether it's, volunteering, whether it's launching a new career, something that actually excites you and gets you out of bed in the morning, gets you excited to wake up every day. What I want you to do is really sit and think about, what is the thing that brings joy to my heart right now to think about? As I move on to the third point, Maslow's hierarchy talks about self-actualization being the highest. Well, if you think about actualizing yourself being the best version of yourself, we don't create a legacy. We don't, I believe, reach ultimate fulfillment until we've helped other people. So the third thing is, can you volunteer? Can you mentor people? Can you, give back, as so many people say, which will help you build a legacy through service? Whenever we think about these things, and as you're listening to this podcast, if you have had any of these thoughts, and if maybe, your siblings, maybe if you're young enough, maybe it's your parents who have, done these things. The first thing that's going to come up are those limiting beliefs that trap us. I'm too old, the self-doubt, there's fear, it's inadequate. We put ourselves in self-imposed prisons, and then we fight for those limitations. I want you to now recognize that thinking And don't be afraid to explore these areas of new interest. Surround yourself with people who inspire you. Surround yourself with people who are doing things, who are alive and invigorated. So, to continue this chapter of their life. And remember, it is never too late to rewrite your story. So again, as I close, the last thing I want you to do is ask yourself what you want this chapter to look like. Again, think of it as you have a notebook of blank paper and you get to write whatever you want. Again, within reason, because again, there are some things that just, I can't go and be a professional basketball player. I can't go and be, make the Olympic team in snowboarding because number one, I'm not limber enough. I have to take my feet out of the boots to put them back on when I fall. And so I can't do that. My body says, no, that window has closed. And nor do I want to do anything like that. I believe that in any time in your life, you are always one identity shift away from creating the life that you want. So, my peeps, if this topic interested you and it resonated with you, and maybe you just want to explore how to find your purpose after you close the door on this chapter. Maybe it's retirement, maybe it's just leaving a job. Either way it goes, I want you to be confident in your whole life. If you want to explore this in more depth with me, feel free to reach out. You can find me at traviasteward.com. That's TRAV as in Victor, IA, Steward, STEWARD as in David.com. And you know what? Let's just jump on a call and see how I can help you live into this next phase of life with meaning, with purpose, and with confidence. All right, my peeps. We'll talk next week.